It's Joe Mullings from 160 Studios in Delray Beach, and joining me today is Jean-Claude Dubecher, who is the Chairman and CEO of Braun America. Jean-Claude, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for taking part in the AdvaMed MedTech Conference and certainly leading the charge for Braun. Are you with us today from beautiful Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am. Yes, actually from my home, as we are during this pandemic, still all who are not in the plants, right, and in production are still working from home. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you took the role, you assumed it on June 1st from Carol Neubauer, and Carol had a fantastic 24, 25-year run there and had delivered to you and your team a very, very strong organization. So what do you have your eyes focused on for Braun over the next few years?
Yeah, so indeed, Carol had a huge impact. I don't think only for the company, but for the medtech industry here across the nation. And I'm very excited to be now in the role, because I think we are at a very critical moment when you look at the marketplace, how changes have accelerated. If you think about digitalization, what impact it has, and you think about vertical integrations, different players actually coming in this market space, it's a very exciting time. And for us in Braun, this is the moment to start the transformation and really prepare ourselves and transform ourselves into the next generation of healthcare, because it has always been the key for us, and the crucial purpose that we want to make a difference for patients, for customers, for employees, all our stakeholders and communities. And I think even more than ever, that will be the focus going forward.
The primary markets that Braun serves extraordinarily well are infusion therapy, pain management, and the dialysis market. And as you mentioned, it's a transformational time for the entire industry. I think more is going to change over the next 24 months than perhaps the previous 24 years. Are there any specific areas within those three verticals on the digital side? Is there monitoring involved? Is there passive monitoring, or is there a cloud base? Is there anything you can share us with any specifics?
Yeah, so I think, we are rapidly moving from thinking about products and how the products can help to really being outcomes focused, physician, clinician, patient experience focus, creating efficiencies. And when you think about moving into that space, then it's really about creating ecosystems and creating ecosystem which create all that value for our customers, but then also for the patients. And I think the times are gone where you really just think product and product development. It's really around a much bigger holistic approach than we ever had before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. More and more success is being seen on those organizations that are serving, as you call it, an ecosystem or entire platform versus just a single entity within the value proposition. Outcomes, values, and certainly access all become certain touch points for this. During the pandemic, I know Braun had gotten emergency use authorization on your infusion pumps. I think Carol had shared that with me, if I'm not mistaken. Did that technology pivot from its intended use in order to serve the patient population?
Yeah, so we are really proud of that EUA, and I'm proud of the organization, how in a record time we were able, working together with the FDA, to provide this additional value for our pumps. During the height of the crisis, it was all around how can you deliver medication, how can you deliver that in a safe way also for clinicians. And the EUA allowed our pumps to use for ventilation and delivery of medication that way as well. And it made a big difference. We're actually in the infusion pump space, the only company where the EUA still is there. You might have heard just a few days ago, all the other EUAs were eliminated in that space, but ours is still there. And again, I think it was a great example how when you have a crisis, how you can get really agile, you can get fast if you have this focus on the patient. What you can do and what you can achieve. And I think the big question now for us is, with those examples we have, how can we keep them, right? So then once the pandemic is over, let's not go back into the way we have done things before. Let's take all those learnings and keep applying them, so that our innovation cycles are getting much faster, and we just have much bigger impact and make a bigger difference for our patients and customers.
And that is impressive. You took the helm June 1st, as we mentioned earlier, and that was spot in the middle. Well, I don't even know if it's in the middle early enough, because this is going to be a much longer journey, I think, than any of us care for, but that's where we are. But you took the helm right in the middle of the start of the crisis. And tell me a little bit about what you were thinking about on that day that you took that lead over, and everything now fell on your shoulders. Leadership style, intention. You've had a fabulous career coming into Braun with J&J and some other big players. So what were you thinking of, and what are your commitments to your organization in order to get us through this?
Yeah, so within B. Braun of America, we have several companies, and I took over the biggest portion, B. Braun Medical, on January 1st. So right 2 months to 2 months and a half before the whole thing started. And I think the one thing which we did early on, which now hindsight really helps, is like that during the crisis, we had very transparent communication. We did fireside chats every week, just inform the whole organization where we are, what the latest news were. And I think this transparent communication, that reaching out from home into the homes of the employees, created a connection early on, which really helped us to get in a very focused way through the crisis. And we're still doing it to this day, and it's here to stay. But I do think people always talk about how important communication and leadership is, but I think in this crisis, being transparent, fact-based, being open also about things we didn't know, really worked out, because we didn't know many things early on. And I think that was is the challenge, taking on a new role, getting into the company, and just having this being genuine and transparent, that there are lots of things we don't know, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to figure it out together. And it worked out really well, fortunately.
Your career previous to Braun was in the ophthalmology business with J&J, certainly a powerhouse in that space. Can you share with the audience a little bit about your background, product, platforms, education, and then what got you to this position?
Yeah. So I think I had various experience where I was very fortunate to have them, which helped build my professional experience and expertise over the years. I was spent quite some time in the Swiss Army. I was a captain, an infantry company commander, and that was very early on, so right around when I turned 20. And you learn, like as a very young person, you learn all the tools of leadership, about servant leadership. What does it mean to take care of 250 soldiers in crisis situations? So I started off with that, and then spent quite some time with McKinsey, where I really learned how to to have a strategic approach, right? How to develop a strategy, how to assess markets, which to this day helps me tremendously. And then I was fortunate enough starting with advanced medical optics in ophthalmology that I was able to switch from McKinsey to taking over a plant. I was managing the biggest manufacturing site in Puerto Rico of advanced medical optics. So really learning manufacturing, moved then to Spain and run a pharma plant there, and then moved into R&D and was responsible for R&D and operations and supply chain, and then moved into commercial, again back in Europe, managing EMEA. And I think what is unique is that I did all those things in details, in depth, right? It was not just that I managed it from far, but I was in the middle of it, which helped me develop this focus on customers, and then focus on how do you move a company to be focused on customer and then create the growth and create profitability. But looking back, I think I'm very, very grateful for all those experiences and having had various mentors which pushed me to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's always great to have the leader of an organization having sat in manufacturing, sat in strategy, sat in engineering, because there are so many decisions that have to be made moving forward. With that, what do you think are the toughest decisions coming ahead for leaders in the medtech industry right here on October 1st or the first week of October in 2020, given what we're facing, facing the digital transition going on, given facing the pandemic we've gotten? It won't be our last, and we're going to learn to manage around that. What are the decisions to the patient, to the employee, and to the market in general that you think leaders are facing?
Yeah, so I think for the market, it's really the toughest decisions are we see how the market is changing, the trends, how they're accelerating, and how do you make sure that the company is agile enough to keep up with that? How can you actually get ahead of the curve? I think that's just from an overall point a challenging part, and do all that without forgetting where you're coming from. There's this famous saying, you need to protect the core and then really push for all the other areas. But if you don't protect and grow the core, you're not going to be able to do the rest of the things. So finding that balance, I think, is absolutely critical. And I think the second point is, as the market is changing and as skill requirements, capability requirements are changing, how do you keep up with that as an organization? If you talk about digitalization, if you talk about artificial intelligence, these are capabilities which we first need to build. And how do you transform an organization to get those capabilities? I think that's one of the other big challenges. And then doing all that while keeping the patient always at the forefront, right? It's always the patient in the center, so that you don't get distracted by your internal focus and preparing for the external, and then just you forget about the patient. I think those are the three biggest challenges.
You bring up something very interesting, the core competency in relative terms between software, AI, cloud-based technologies. Those aren't necessarily native to medtech. They're starting to become now by survival. But now medtech, for the first time, and I've been at this 30 years and I feel qualified to say this, medtech now will start looking outside of its current echo chamber of talent and start looking at people who've developed consumer products, potentially defense products, or others that are driven by that AI cloud software. Are you prepared, and is the organization prepared to absolutely say, knowing medtech isn't critical all the time? Because that's what we've done for 30 years, is we've rarely hired outside our industry. What are your thoughts on that, and how quickly can we access that talent outside and bring them in? And why would they potentially be interested in leaving consumer and coming into health tech?
Yeah. So I think you're you're absolutely right. It's exactly where we need to go. And when you think about those capabilities, we need them in all areas then, right? Because that's the fascinating thing is it's not just that you need it in production or you need in R&D. Actually, how do you sell it? It's a completely different process. So it really addresses all functions. And we as an organization need to go there as fast as possible. Now, to your question around how do we get those people in? And I think one key part for that is the purpose we have, which I think is just very strong, and that's why I'm sure why you have spent 30 years in medtech. Mm-hmm. You know, being able to make this difference in patient lives, protecting them, improving patients' lives, it's just very unique. You know, I told you I was a consultant and with McKinsey, and I did fascinating projects in other industries, like in the cement industry. And you can have a great purpose there as well, that you're building great roads and bridges which help people. But there's nothing, really nothing like helping people, patients, to protect their lives and improve their lives. And I think this is one key thing which we need to bring across. And if you are in artificial intelligence and you have great skills there, well, if you can apply those to save lives, I think that's a good argument.
I agree.
Like to move.
I agree. Well, that's a perfect place to leave our session today. There's always a patient in our own house, and we have to remember that, and they're super close to us. Thank you very much for taking part in the AdvaMed initiative. I know that Carol, I think, is the chairman still of AdvaMed, so I know he's super pumped about that. And again, sharing Braun, and best wishes on your journey, and continue to change the world through medicine. I appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
This is Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.